Okay, I'm going to give you your first explanation of this chart, this diagram, and compare it to this written pattern that you already have. So you can just kind of connect the dots between these written words and what this chart actually shows. So it says to chain a multiple of 4 stitches plus 2. Okay, and that's the base chain. And so these ovals, each oval represents a chain. So this is your base chain. And then it says turn and chain 2. So this chain right here, or these 2 chains right here, are those 2 chains after the turn. But really, in practice, when you work it up, all of these are all your chains. You know, it only makes that, it only goes vertically after you've worked stitches. But if you count up all of these stitches in this bottom row here, it is a multiple of 4 plus 2. But if you count all of them, it's a multiple of 4. Okay, so then this, right after here, this is where your hook would be. So you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The fifth chain is where you're working your first set of 4 double crochets. Now this symbol right here, with the little hat on top, and then the little slash across the middle, that's a double crochet. If it were just like this, but did not have the slash, that would be a half double crochet. Now, here's a little trick. The number of slashes across the middle, not the top, but the number of slashes across the middle are the number of yarn overs, because how do you represent a treble crochet? You guessed it. It's the same as this, only with an extra slash. So if you see this and 2 slashes, that's a treble crochet. And what do you do in a treble crochet? You do 2 yarn overs. So each slash represents a yarn over. If you see 3 slashes that look just like this with 3 slashes, yes, that's right. That's a double treble, which is what you make when you do 3 yarn overs. Okay, I'm carrying on. All right, so then you're going to do the 4 double crochets in the next chain. Well, but in that next chain is that 5th chain, because see, this is saying you're doing your base chains, then you're turning, then you're chaining 2, and then you're skipping 2 chains of the base chain. But see, she's not counting these chains as your base chain. She's counting these 2. And then in this one, which is also the same thing as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 chains from the hook, you work 4 double crochets. Do you see how they all come together? That's because they're all worked into this stitch. And then, based on this diagram, you're going to skip 1, 2, 3 chains. And then you're going to work 4 more double crochets into that next chain. Let's see if that's correct. So you're going to skip, yes, 3 chains. So you've worked into here, and you're going to skip 1, 2, 3 chains. And then you're going to work into that next one. Did I say that? I said skip 3. If I didn't, I apologize, because you work this one, 1, 2, 3, you skip, and then you work in here, okay? And what do we see here? We see 1, 2, 3 chains we skip, and then work 4 double crochet again. And then this is what you're repeating. But you're repeating this across. You repeat from the star, which is the 4 double crochets in the 1, skipping 3, and then you're repeating from here to here, obviously, but then you're ending with a skip 2 chains, 1, 2, and then in this last chain, you're going to work 2 double crochets. Instead of the 4, you're working 2 double crochets. Okay, so then, oh, and also you see this little arrow. They don't always have that, but it is nice. So this shows you that you're working this direction just like you would work your crochet if you're right-handed anyway. You're going to work across your chain like this. And then when you turn, you chain up one and then you work back across. So you're reading your odd rows from right to left, but you're reading your even rows from left to right because you're going to be working back across that row, obviously. So this shows that you chain up one, and that does not count as a stitch. You can mostly tell that because a stitch is not worked into that chain in subsequent rows. Just like you can see that this chain 2 is actually not going to be counted as a stitch, and you know this because you see in row 2 there's not a stitch that is worked into these chains. So those are just turning chains and only turning chains. Okay, so then these little plus signs are all single crochets. That's the symbol for single crochet. So you see that there's a plus sign above every single one of these slashes, which is at the top of these double crochet symbols. So you see that there is a single crochet worked in every single double crochet, every double crochet across. Okay, and what does it say for row 2? Yep, turn, chain 1, single crochet across. Okay, here we are at row 3. Once again, you're chaining up 2. Now, look at this. Do you see in row 4 how there's a single crochet worked into the top of this turning chain? These do count as stitches. But this first one is not going to be counting it, not counting as a stitch. But you see that this is actually counting as a stitch in subsequent shell rows. So once again, I mean, and this basically is the flip of this. Instead of doing 4 double crochet clusters across and ending with the 2 double crochets shells, you're starting with the 2 double crochets. So you're chaining up 2, that counts as your first double crochet, and then you're working a double crochet into that same stitch, that first stitch that the chains are coming out of. And then we're going to do what? Skip 1, 2 single crochets, and then work 4 double crochets into that next single crochet. Does it say to do that? It says chain 2, double crochet in the first single crochet, which is where your chain 2 is coming out of. You're going to skip 2 single crochets and 4 double crochets in that next single crochet, and skip 3 single crochets. Yes, skip 1, 2, 3 single crochets, work 4, and so it goes. And this is very simple pattern. I mean, it's 2 rows. Well, I guess 4 rows because these flip. 3 and 5 are the flip of one another. So you alternate between this. You work 3, 4, 5, and then you start over again at 2. So you see, so this is first row, nothing else is exactly like it. 2, all single crochet. 3, start with 2 double crochets and then work 2 double crochets and work 4 DC shells across. 4 is all single crochet. 5 is work 4 DC shells across and then end with a 2 DC. And then you start again at 2. So 6 is really the same as 2. And so it goes just as in your written pattern, and it shows repeat rows 2 through 5, ending with row 2 or 4. But this is showing you on the diagram that 5 becomes 6. That after 5, you're basically going back to row 2 again to repeat that. So I'm hoping that helped you a tiny bit make the connection between these symbols, which may or may not look like gobbledygook to you right now. They did to me. The first time I looked at diagrams, I thought, there's no way in the world I'll ever be able to understand that. But you see, especially just knowing what each symbol represents, you can connect that to the words. You can identify the stitches. And here, obviously, it's a very different layout. And this is also nice. Not all diagrams have color changes, but color changes are really nice to help you identify, especially with things like that, which row is which, because you've got these different stitch heights. So it just kind of looks like things are moving all over the place. But really, if you follow along the color, all of this first set of green is row 1. And then row 2 is in the red. And obviously these are taller stitches, but you're working all of these single crochets across the top of the stitches from the first row. But these are all symbols that are used in this chart. So if you remember what we used here, you can easily identify these. I mean, these are chains. You have some single crochets, you have some double crochets, you have more double crochets. This is a larger shell, and then single crochets and more double crochets. But all you have in this entire chart is single crochets, chains, and double crochets. That's it. See, you can do this.